Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is December 30th, the year 2020. It is probably our last Facebook for the year 2020. We will see all of you in the year 2021. And I just wanted to welcome everybody. Welcome to the Facebook Live. We are here with our panel. We have Travis, who's a musician and a spiritual teacher. Welcome, Travis. We have April, who is a psychic, a channel, and a medium, and a spiritual teacher. Welcome, April, our part of our regular panel. And we have Kelly, who is our Qigong teacher. Welcome, Kelly. And we are missing our incredible Eileen today. She is busy with something else. And we are also missing Louise and Caesar, who are normally part of the panel. Louise will not be able to make it, but hopefully Caesar joins us from the road. He is driving, so welcome. So since this is the last Facebook Live for year 2020, I'm going to start with, because every new year starts with a resolution, I will declare the resolution that has always been part of why I created the Facebook groups 5 years back, which is to bring peace, harmony, and abundance to everyone. Like, there is this great desire in me that if I have discovered the natural flow of life, I want that for everyone. Like, I want Travis to be successful in his music business, and I want him to be successful as a spiritual teacher. I've told Kelly so many times, I want like hundreds of his Qigong studios to be opened up all throughout the world. April to have success as a psychic and a medium and a spiritual teacher. That's like not only the panel, but everyone, each and every member. And I take that interest, like Luis has detected that in me, that I take interest in responding to each and every member, making sure that I do what is in Avatar, right? They say, I see you. Like when I touch you with just an emoji, I'm saying, I see you, I see you, I acknowledge you, I recognize you, I appreciate you, I'm grateful for you. Luis has recognized that about me. So with that intention that there has to be peace, harmony, and abundance for all. Now, Poonam cannot bring that peace, harmony, and abundance for all, or Eckhart Tolle cannot bring that peace, harmony, and abundance for all. So the peace, harmony, and abundance is, the power is within you. You are it, right? Each and every one of you has the power to bring the peace, harmony, and abundance. What I wanted to do is for year 2021, I wanted, if you'll want an additional resolution or resolve to make for 2021, I will offer all of you, make the resolution to be forgiveness, right? So last week we talked about deepening. This is the time planetary intelligence with Jupiter and Saturn being aligned, increase your presence power, right? Get into that deep eye that Eckhart talks about. But now I'm going to say is, along with that, the biggest, I love talking about limiting beliefs. And the most egregious of limiting beliefs is having resentment and grievances. What Eckhart says, where you've cut yourself from your mother, you've cut yourself off from your father, you're not talking to your siblings, you're not talking to your whoever, coworker, whatever it may be. So I'm going to, for the panel, I'm going to read the end of Eckhart's In the Power of Now. He talks about forgiveness, and I will ask the panel a question. So here is what Eckhart says. Forgiveness is a term. So this person, this is like written as question and answer, right? So the publisher is asking him, or somebody may have asked him, what you say about choice also applies to forgiveness, I suppose. You need to be fully conscious and surrender before you can forgive. So Eckhart says, forgiveness is a term that has been in use for 2,000 years, but most people have a very limited view of what it means. You cannot truly forgive yourself or others as long as you derive your sense of self from the past. Only through accessing the power of the now, which is your own power, can there be true forgiveness. This renders the past powerless, and you realize deeply that nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you could touch, even in the slightest, the radiant essence of who you are. The whole concept of forgiveness then becomes unnecessary. So what I want to ask the panel, when he says this renders the past powerless, and you realize deeply that nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you could touch, even in the slightest, the radiant essence of who you are. What does that mean to all of you? And what level does that mean? And when do you get to that point that you realize that the whole concept of forgiveness then is unnecessary, right? So the first person I'm going to go to, Travis. Go ahead.
Okay.
Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you think of the resolution? That forgiveness be the resolution?
Oh, I love that. I'm always for forgiveness any day of the year, any hour of the day. So, and one thing I can say about forgiveness too that I feel like is really very much in agreement with the things I've heard Eckhart Tolle say. In my experience with it is that when there's real true forgiveness, it doesn't even really feel like forgiveness. It doesn't feel like there's anything to forgive. It almost just feels like there's just no problem there. And so that to me is when I feel like I've really come to that place of forgiveness, whether it be with myself or with life or God or with somebody in particular. It just feels like there's no obstruction there. It's the absence of any kind of obstruction. And so so the question is what now, just to clarify or kind of reiterate a little bit?
So the question is, how do you get to the point where you know for sure within your inner being that forgiveness is totally unnecessary?
Okay.
And that your radiant essence was never touched.
Right. Well, I know for me, it's through my moving into that deeper, also lighter, also more open, more spacious. It's what could be dubbed God, but I know that name has a lot of baggage. So, but it's that source out of which all things come. The closer I can get to that, the more that I can be with that and get to know that. And I find through that, I find myself more in that kind of Sat Chit Ananda state of that being, consciousness, bliss, that I am state. And through being in that way, I'm fulfilled. I'm more satisfied I find peace, I find solace, I find satisfaction, clarity of mind, compassion, space, and all of that. And so when I'm that, when I feel that complete, it makes it so difficult for me to have a grievance with another or with life. I all of a sudden I can afford the forgiveness. I'm not so impoverished within that forgiveness is something I can't afford. I can always afford it. And so so for me, it really comes down to um, finding the heart of life, right? Which is also my heart of hearts. And moving deeper and deeper into that. The more that I'm able to do that, the less I need anything from others, because I'm growing into a kind of maturity where I have now found ways to meet my own needs and make sure that I'm well taken care of, and then I'm better able to tend to others. It's more easy for me to find the understanding necessary in dealing with others to meet them where they are and not expect them to be any way different than they are at this moment. That, like how Eckhart Tolle says, we're all doing the best we can at the level of consciousness that we have right now, with the degree of consciousness that we have. So even when people are doing things that seem really out of alignment, they're doing the best they can with what they've got. And so I think that level of understanding, it allows one to be more in a state of grace where to me, maturity or grace doesn't require maturity or grace from another. It only requires it from me. And then I'm able to give that. And I found the satisfaction within myself in and of that. And I don't need the other person to be a source of satisfaction for me, to behave or act in a certain way. And like I said, I'm just more able to be there, because that's really what I think I want more than anything, and what I feel like probably a big New Year's resolution is for me, because it's what brings me most joy, is to give my very best. I love to give my very best and be my best self, and give that light and that fullness, that abundance, in the way that I am and in what I do, and how I am with others. And so that's, so yeah, I think, and also too, part of it, I know for me, I do have my human moments that crop up from time to time. And I think I have to offer myself forgiveness too, in those times when I go, oh, I know who I'm growing into. I know how I like to be. I'm not always at my very best. And so in those moments when I'm not, to be able to find that same kind of tenderness and patience and forgiveness, and that I think life, if life is able to give that to me, why shouldn't I be able to give that to myself? So yeah, that's what I have to say to all of that.
Thank you, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
So what Eckhart says about that is nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. When you said that you are okay with the other to be however they are, you offer just a spaciousness to them. You don't require them to behave a certain way, right? And this is the understanding when Eckhart said, what did he say? Nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you. What Travis just said, that realization of nothing you ever did, whether we were unconscious or the other was unconscious, right? It is perfectly okay. That is what is. Nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. As an example, what Eckhart talks about is there is a video, and I will post the video on forgiveness. Eckhart does talk about his father, that he had a strong resentment about his father. And then the ultimate compassion after his awakening is he understood where his father was coming from. That his father, I think his father's father, grandfather, I don't know if he passed away or left his grandmother. So his father was taken out of private school. His father's sisters were allowed to attend the school, but this boy was made to go take like an apprenticeship at 14, 15 years of age. So he had a strong resentment for women, right? And used them. He was a good looking man. He was a womanizer. So he used women, and then he had this anger. Like Eckhart says, right? It was like a powder keg. Any time it would go off, kind of anger. And that was his pain body, Eckhart's pain body, that it was never directed at Eckhart, but just the father and mother being in total. But the compassion, that enormous compassion, like Travis is saying, right? But I bet, Travis, you have grown in your presence power to have that compassion, to allow the other to be as they are.
When I do, yeah, and I you know, I think I still have room to grow, but I'm grateful for to whatever degree of maturity I've come to. I'm very grateful. You know, I really want to offer my best to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Travis. April, did you want to talk about forgiveness? And I think there is a question.
Would you like a sneak peek? Well, I'm going to give it to you anyway.
They also asked about how do you know that you have forgiven, right? Somebody asked, how do you know that they have forgiven? So April, if you want to talk about what was this forgiveness portion, and also if you have your own example of how do you know that you forgave somebody and now you can see that forgiveness is there, like you know from your inner being that there is forgiveness.
Yeah.
How do you know that you have actually forgiven? Because some people superficially say, oh yeah, that's okay, I've forgiven, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah, they say, oh yeah, I'm over that, I dealt with that. And I'm thinking, no, you didn't, because you're still angry. If you're still angry, you want to beat up the world, you haven't got there yet. And I mean, Travis has already said basically the key to this. It's understanding that people act how they feel. They act how they feel. The example I use for people to explain that is, let's say you're at the gas station and you feel like opening the door. When you stand at the door, do you stop and you go, you might be a little too short, I'll wait? Or do you just open the door? You just open the door because you feel nice, right? You don't wait and go, yeah, your hair's a little red. Not you. People act how they feel inside, period. Good, bad, right, wrong, doesn't matter. And once I started applying that to everything, everyone, anything that happened in my past, I gained this level of understanding and compassion that people who had done wrong things, per se, if you want to use that word, to me or to others around me, it is because that's the level they were at. They, at that time, at that moment, one, either didn't know better, or two, were not capable. And then myself, I'm certainly not a saint. I had a couple of really crazy years in my life when I was, mind you, I was married by 15, so I was quite young, but I was quite the rebel. That rebel is still there. I have to tame her. I have to make sure she stays away because, now I'm supposed to be spiritual, right? So like Eckhart said, I'm supposed to be the spiritual one now. So even myself, I have to look at, that's all I had to work with at the time. That's the level I was at. That's what I knew. And the way I tell people this is, if you've seen somebody on the side of the road or walking down the street who is injured or ill or disabled, would you go and beat them up? No. You are the same thing back then. You're not fully capable. You are injured or you're ill or you're wounded because that's where you're at. So you have to have your own level of self-compassion. So when you take on that perception, when you change your perception to one of compassion and to love and to understanding that people act how they feel, it has nothing to do with you, then there is no forgiveness necessarily needed. That is the forgiveness. That is the understanding. That is the compassion. I now get it. And you know what? I understand why everything happened and I'm okay with it. And I've said this before that the soul is not sick. Like I have a cold right now, but my soul's not sick. My soul doesn't have a cough. It doesn't have a sinus problem. It doesn't have a backache, right? The soul is never sick. So in essence, that statement is true that nothing ever truly happens to your soul. But I think Kelly's going to probably bring up, there's a level of karma that we have to kind of remember, that it's not just all this, golden la. There is a level of karma that is there. But when it comes to forgiveness, the moment that I understood that my parents came from abused homes and that's all they were functioning at, that was it. I didn't need forgiveness anymore. It was already forgiven. So going into the future and also looking at 2020, I believe there is a much grander purpose going on for everything that we have dealt with COVID and lockdowns and masks and all of it. And I reside my faith in God always has a plan. I don't always know what that plan is. I don't even sometimes like that plan as it is unfolding, but there is always a plan and I trust in the Creator. So when you know that you have forgiveness is when you no longer hold any resentments of any sort, and you now actually hold a compassion for that person. I have tremendous amount of compassion for my dad, for my mom. I have a tremendous amount of understanding. That to me is when you know that you've truly reached forgiveness, right? So that's what I have to say. I'm gonna let Kelly do the karma part.
Thank you, April. Beautifully said. That's exactly how it is when we get to that unconditional love, no matter what you did or no matter what happened to me through you, it was perfectly how it should have been. That's the karmic understanding, right? This is how it should have been, and I accept it, but I love you because I understand what you had gone through. After everyone speaks, I will talk about one of my personal experiences that I went through, and why the forgiveness in that one incident actually led to uh, that point of unconditional love. So Kelly, thank you, April. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Poonam.
Thank you.
Very well said, Travis and April. Forgiveness is one of those universal laws of creation, where the space that Eckhart is talking about is the space that you progress to when you become still inside and you are no longer attached to the outcome of a situation or an event, and you are no longer attached to the pain or the hurt of the past. And there's an important discernment or differentiation to make, where, I mean, and again, Eckhart does a really good job of explaining this and emphasizing that the past, you know, in his own way, the past is not who you are. The present moment is who you are. The choices that you are making in the present moment is who you are. What you are feeling in the present moment is who you are. And that is how you understand forgiveness, or this space where it is not just compassion, there's a depth of loving kindness, of understanding, you know, and perspective is everything. Because once we've gone through enough of our own baggage, our own pain, our own hurt, and we've disassembled, deconstructed our attachment to that as a way to validate our ego, a way to validate our false ego identity, we then come to that space of understanding. And this is where we also stop karma, where we stop the way our mind acts in a method of attaching value to something in the past. And this is how karma plays out in the present. If we are still attached to something in the past and it is continually playing out in the present, we're continually attracting the same patterns in the present, in the now, until we let go of them. And there are always layers upon layers upon layers of things interwoven. And, you know, again, it depends on, you know, whether or not we're listening, whether or not we're going inside and listening to that space of stillness and what's actually speaking to us from our heart. And listening is incredibly crucial to understanding these spaces and being able to progress consciously into the space of loving kindness, where the quote unquote conscious act of needing to forgive, to feel better about ourselves. And I feel that this is sort of the space that Eckhart is talking about, where we often push ourselves to forgive others, because this is the way things that we've been taught in the external three-dimensional world. And this is the way that we've been taught karma works. Except for us to actually experience forgiveness, we do not need to interact with the person, that the situation, or the people that that situation is connected with, because everything is dependent on how we are listening to ourselves and how we are going inside and how we are accepting our awareness is interacting with reality. That's how karma works. That's how we accrue, create more karma, or stop it, and as the Buddhists like to say, annihilate it, you know, burn it down, whatever you want to call it. Forgiveness is a beautiful space. It's the same space as gratitude. It's the same space as accepting that love is at the core of everything. It's the same, you know, when you, like for myself, growing up, you know, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I had no idea what my mom and dad were going through. I had no perspective on some of the adult responsibilities that they had to deal with. You know, give me, you know, 20, 30 years of working nonstop. And, you know, I work with my family, worked with my mom and my brother for about 25 years, 30 years. And being in that close proximity, being able to see all of the emotional spaces that they've been through, all of the challenges with work, you know, all the, you know, adulting that we have to do, you know, you gain that perspective, you gain that ability to understand other people's spaces because of the stuff that you've been through. And that builds that understanding. I mean, unless we're stuck in attachment and unless we're stuck in fear-driven patterns, right? This is why going inside is so important. This is why understanding how to feel and listen to what we are feeling is so important, because everything gets registered by the body. Even if our brain likes to run amok and like start, you know, slapping sticky labels on things, Our body knows, our heart knows, right? And this is why I say our body knows, because our heart is in our body, plain and simple. And the space of forgiveness that Eckhart is talking about takes discipline to get to, takes time to understand all the ways that a person or that you personally are attached to fixing things, knowing things, needing a specific outcome to reflect your understanding of what forgiveness is. When you develop enough perspective, personal perspective, and look at enough of your own trauma and how we are attached emotionally to trauma and how we've used our past as a way to build our personal identity. I mean, it all boils down to attachment. It all boils down to how we are attached to external events and the past to validate who we are and why and how. And stopping the mind is the big key. Being still inside, whether that's through, physical endeavors, music, things that give you that space to go inside and connect and understand that it's an evolution. It's a constant evolution, constant refinement. And what Eckhart is talking about is that space where you get where forgiveness is an understanding, and love and loving kindness and compassion are so much of your primary space that you operate from that it's not even a thought process. There is no internal dialogue. That space of understanding and forgiveness is so much a part of who you are because of how much you've forgiven yourself and how much you've taught yourself how to reconnect with that space of love inside of you, that forgiveness and loving kindness and compassion are the same as breathing. And after a while, it just becomes your primary space that you operate from. So, for anyone out there who is, racking their brain or trying to figure this space out, it takes practice. It takes consistency. It takes discipline to remind yourself that it is a progression, that it is an evolution. But the beautiful thing is that that's all it is it just takes the time and the consistency and the practice, and you build up that momentum, you build up that counterbalance inside so that it becomes the new normal inside of you.
Thank you, Kelly. I think even Eckhart has, I don't know if it's in the New Earth or in The Power of Now, where he says that forgiveness of the present moment is all the more necessary. Like how you say, right? You have enough compassion that forgiveness is just, you don't even think that, oh, I have to forgive. It's already there. The forgiveness, the spaciousness that Travis was talking about is already there for the other, right? The loving kindness and compassion. But that requires, and I think in module 2 of Conscious Manifestation course, module 6 of Conscious Manifestation course, in School of Awakening, Eckhart has constantly reminded us nothing happens without the deep I. Nothing happens without the deep I. The deep I is your alignment with inner beingness. So just like Eckhart, right? Even my mother was exactly like Eckhart's father. So I find like a very harmonizing oneness with Eckhart in that essence, that even I used to live that way as a child. And I remember as a child having resentment for my mother's anger, right? And physical abuse and verbal abuse. And this is the example I wanted to offer to whoever was asking, how do you know you have forgiven? So one thing that happens, what April was saying, right? That either we feel angry or there are situations that will be abusive. Like if we are holding that egregious limiting belief, the grievance and the resentment within our vibrational being, like we are vibrational in nature, right? So that grievance is going to attract more situations of that nature. So I must have gone through quite a few incidents. There was one incident work-wise in 2004, 2005 timeframe. I had not even come across Eckhart's teachings, but because of the Eastern background, this is a workplace situation where I was harassed and sexually harassed in a workplace situation. My manager was from Pakistan, right? And somehow, just because of where I was, I had just started my spiritual path and my Eastern philosophy of karma. I knew I needed to forgive this one incident. I knew that this one incident, I don't know why, in my inner being, I knew I needed to make a conscious effort to delete every instant message, delete every email, not have anything against this company and go back and sue them, right? Like, you know, what does the general public say? Like if I talk to anybody that is normal human being, if I say, hey, this happened to me in this company, they're going to say, why don't you file a lawsuit and sue them, right, for sexual harassment? So I made sure that that did not happen. And there was a complete forgiveness. I was like, one, there's this Hindu and Pakistan, they're Muslim, right? So I'm going to cut that karma, that bond. A Hindu cannot forgive a Muslim person, right? And two was I knew that, bless you, April. Two was this, I wanted to forgive this incident somehow. I don't know why, but I knew I needed to forgive. My mom had stopped speaking to me like a few years before, right before that. You won't believe it. The moment I forgive this person, my mom started speaking to me. She called me. She asked me to come visit her in India, to the extent that I got to the point where there was an unconditional love for her, the same thing that April is saying, to the extent that she passed away in 2016. And right before she passed away, a week before she passed away, she said, give me pictures of you, your son, and every piece in your house so that I kind of get the feeling that I'm with you, right? That kind of unconditional love between two people, right? I want that for everyone. I want y'all to experience the separation. Like Eckhart says, it is really, really true. Our mind is creating enemies. The moment we forgive, the enemy is gone. We make enemies out of our mothers. We make enemies out of our fathers. We make enemies of our children. We stop talking to them. And you'll realize that once you forgive, right? Forgiveness is the path. And then vistas open up, right? After that incident, never did any kind of abuse ever happen to me since 2005. So 15 years, and it's been a beautiful journey, but I know for sure, right to the core of my being, even without Eckhart's teachings, forgiveness is really important. And that particular thing where you have compassion for them, and that forgiveness, the forgiveness is the loving, unconditional love for them. So let's go to one of the questions. And I didn't put them in the order that they came in, but I'll read them in the order that they came in. Candy says, I'm facing a lot of challenges in life now, and my vibrational frequency is really low. How do I raise my vibrational frequency? April, you want to get started on, because even Nancy asked the same question. Yes, I'm feeling anxiety. So I'm in the same situation as Candy. So it seems to be a universal low frequency vibration. Go ahead. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there is. And I think While I'm not an expert in this field and I'm not an astrologer, I don't do numbers. I think, was it you, Travis? Somebody mentioned this last week, that we don't realize how much we are affected by our sun, our moon, our planets, the circadian rhythms. We really don't understand. It's a huge thing. Was it you, Travis or Kelly, that said it? Yeah, somebody said it. So that's one thing. I will call my daughters and I will say, I have one daughter who is more into that. She watches the phases of the moons, and I'll say, Candace, what moon are we in? Because I am dying over here. What's going? She's like, Mom, we're in a retrograde. I'm like, God, help me. Right. So I think that's one thing to just be aware of, just be conscious of, because it really does have a huge effect on us. We also have the Eckhart talks about a lot the collective energy. Right now, we're having a rough time, and holidays tend to be a little bit of a rough time. So that's another thing to be aware of. Um, one of my favorite things from Eckhart is, and I say this to people all the time, and it sounds super funny, super silly. And if you could say, instead of I am angry, I am tired, I am depressed, I'm having some anger, that having anger already puts that space there. That is one of my favorite concepts of his. It takes it outside of you. It no longer is you. So I'm having a time of my frequency being low. I'm having a time of low energy instead of I am, right? That's one of them. And then I'm sure all the methods will be expressed here, but forgiveness is one, gratitude is one. And I will lay down at night, and this may seem silly as well, but I will lay in my bed and I will say, I'll go all the way down to, I am thankful that I have a pillow. I am thankful that I have sheets, because you know what? Those sheets are expensive. That square piece of fabric is so, I could not have sheets. And actually, there was a time in my life where I couldn't afford sheets. I am thankful for those sheets, right? Being thankful, and just practicing that in itself. Also, watching your thoughts. Your thoughts are so crucial to your vibrational energy. And then there are specific energy things. Of course, we have our Qigong master here, but I like to do some energy. You could do the alternated nostril breathing. You could do breathing. You could do meditation. And I also like to do, Kelly, you'll have to give me the name for it. I actually stand and I take my hands and I take them to my feet and I pull my energy up, and then I go back down and I come back up. So it's like drawing my energy back up to where the way it's supposed to flow. It works for me. But so those are some of the things that I do, and the other guys here, I'm sure, will expand.
Thank you, April. Planets causing, I think even it's like seasonal disorder too, right? Seasonal depression. Winter is a season for seasonal depression. So that may be the reason. Eckhart has the portals of presence, breathwork, meditation, communing with nature, music in the power of now. So those could be used. Thank you, April. Travis, did you want to talk about how do you raise your vibrational energy and anxiety?
Sure. Well, I think April touched on something really important that I could take a lesson from myself, is acknowledging the fluctuations, whether it be in the in the planets and in relation to that, our own personal cycles, because we can't always be high energy. And I know if I lean in any direction, it's that where I'm always trying to do more, give more, be more productive. And then life goes, now you have a cold. And I go, and then, but I wouldn't need the cold if I could just calm down a little bit. So just to acknowledge that it's not always the time to be, it fluctuates. And so it's good to have a healthy regard for that and look at that part of it. And then, as far as what we can do about it, I think, one thing is just that attitude of letting go and accepting and understanding this just might be the way it is right now. But I think there's a good, probably a couple handfuls of really basic, simple things that are also really powerful. I've mentioned before, I have a silly acronym for myself, MEDS, which is MEDS, which is just meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. And so if I can look and see if I'm doing all of those to some fair extent, that's my version of taking my meds and kind of regulating it helps to keep my state a little more equanimous and a little more steady and grounded. Getting outside, getting some fresh air, moving around, sunlight, these things are great. Getting proper nutrition, and some good food in the body, plenty of liquids, just basic things like that. I think also too, recognizing some of our needs. We have needs for community and a sense of belonging, and so when we have that gives us energy. Also to if we doing any kind of like volunteer work or those kinds of things that are kind of selfless action like that, those also fill us with a sense of purpose and help us see things a little more clearly and can give us energy too. And being creative, I think, is also a part of who we are, whether it's writing or drawing or journaling or making music or however it expresses itself through us. So so there's just these kind of basic things. I think it's understanding that what are the universal needs of human beings, as multidimensional beings. We're growing into a deeper understanding of what we really all need universally, collectively. We're growing in that way. And then part of the beauty of it too is we all have some needs that are unique just to us, because we're all so different. So understanding our unique needs as well, certain things. So, but connecting with others, taking care of our bodies, connecting with nature. These are all things that are so simple to do, but I think their effects, shouldn't be underestimated. It can be so powerful, these simple practices. That's what I'd say to that.
Thank you, Travis. I wanted to just real quick quote with Louise. Thank you, Louise. Thank you for joining us. She said on forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that crushed it. Mark Twain. Beautiful. I think I heard Dr. Wayne Dyer talk about it. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that crushed it. The other thing that I think about anxiety is, and I told Nancy about this, what I feel, and y'all can, Kelly's going to come up next, so Kelly can also speak to it. What I feel is when we begin to just start our presence practice, right? Because the light is shining, a little bit of the pain body dislodges, right? The negativity in us is now dislodging and integrating back into our consciousness. And we generally feel low. I've told others in group meditation, some other person was saying that I had them switch to sacred acoustics for meditation. And she was like, it gives me anxiety. And I said, that's what's going to happen when your pain body, when you shed the light of awareness onto all that you were disconnected with in your body. And everything is about connection, is from your outer body into your inner energy of your body. You're making that connection. It's going to dislodge, and that heaviness will stay with you as you move about. That heaviness will stay with you. So your Travis tip of moving around, right? The exercise will dislodge it a little. And that's why Kim, as part of her Qigong practice, Kelly, has like a shaking practice. Like you just shake your body, right? So the energy, so I will post that shaking video because it's available on YouTube, but it's just shaking your body so that the energy flows, right? Because the energy is supposed to flow and it's stuck somewhere, and now you're feeling the heaviness of it. Thank you, Travis, for your tip. Kelly, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. Again, well said, Travis and April. And Poonam, I was actually going to speak to this question in a similar fashion as to what you did. And from my experience, challenges in life in the external world really do pile up when we are close to a new threshold of perception, on that threshold, or have just stepped through it, and we have energetically raised our vibration. And what'll happen, and from my experience, what has happened to me is I will suddenly feel like I'm like a brand new person and everything's going fine. And then all of these external events begin to pile up and happen. And, it's just like, what's going on? It's like, everything was like, super awesome. And then all this, stuff hit the fan. I'm like going, what? So from my experience, challenges arise in the external world when you've gotten stronger, and when you've actually made more connection with yourself, and your connection with your heart has actually gotten stronger. And the external world goes, oh wait, we don't like that. We want you back in your little box and like your fear and your anxiety. So we're gonna like come and like try and trip you up and get you back into that fear. And like clockwork in my life, like anytime I've done something for myself or connected with my heart, the people around me freak out, or I have events that just like crazy zaniness, like, a car accident, or I'll have like, days of weird drivers around me, or weird events in, when malls used to be open, like going around in malls and like weird things happen around me, and you can feel the pressure, right? So this is a great opportunity to listen to what you're feeling, and to listen to how your mind and heart both speak to these challenges that are happening. And another thing that I'd like to say is that your vibrational frequency is not necessarily low. It is, from my experience, what happens when you cross a threshold or close to the threshold or have stepped through a perceptual threshold is your nervous system changes. Your awareness changes, so your body chemistry changes. So your body is going through changes to adapt to the new space that you are in, emotionally and mentally and awareness wise. This is why, meditation, exercise, absolutely. It's diet, all those things about taking care of the body are really, really important. And the reason why exercise is super important, here's a pure physiological reality, is that the adenotriphosphate sequence, the ATP sequence, the cellular conversion of energy sequence, is literally your energy system in your body converting dense energy and moving it out of the cells. So this is why exercise, even a little bit, is so important, because it actually supports the spiritual process of changing the energy in the body. A couple things that I do for myself when I am processing heavy, dense energy that's coming to the surface, because I am changing the way my mind and my heart and everything is aligned and interacting, is I use Siberian ginseng. It's called an adaptogen, which helps your nervous system adapt to stress. I also like to use L-tyrosine, and that's spelled L-tyrosine. And L-tyrosine literally affects the dopamine levels in the body. And the dopamine levels are a direct correlation to the amount of stress that you are under. And it is also particularly awesome if you have sleep deprivation and your energy levels are affected by the sleep deprivation because your system is processing the new space or working hard to shift the energy, and you're holding space for yourself and being present, and you're becoming more disciplined, and your nervous system is changing, and it takes a lot of energy. And sometimes it takes more sleep, and sometimes we're not getting enough sleep. And I found that L-tyrosine is awesome for that, and it really helps balance everything out. It doesn't give you a boost of energy or anything like that, but it is really, really beneficial for sleep deprivation, and also the feeling of depression that we can get from sleep deprivation, when it's not really depression, it's just the fatigue, just the impact of the fatigue of trying to do so much going on inside. So just sort of like putting it all out there, and basically everything that, Travis said, and April and Poonam, again, looking at it from a different perspective in terms of the challenges being gifts, and this being a crucible to test your new strength, and to look at it as this being a test of the new strengths that you've actually connected with, the deeper aspects of your true strength, and that this is what the universe is actually giving you right now, is that opportunity to understand how strong you really are.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Beautiful. There are other adaptogens, right? Like is it called chaga mushroom?
Oh yeah, chaga.
Chaga, and then
lion's mane is awesome. Lion's is really, really good.
Okay, and then reishi.
Yes.
Reishi mushrooms.
Reishi, cordyceps, shiitake, lion's mane. There's a fifth one, but yeah, mushrooms are really, really good because they are plant-based, they're mineral-based, they're really, really easy for the body to absorb and use.
So supplement your practice, spiritual practice, and that is part of like if I look at the medical medium supplements for weight gain, thyroid condition, which I have thyroid condition, is doing the adaptogens, lemon balm, you said chaga mushrooms?
Chaga, yeah,
Chaga.
CHAGA.
Chaga mushrooms.
I'm a big fan of mushrooms. Again, plant-based, and yeah, excellent point, Poonam. When we are doing this work, when you're doing emotional, mental integration work, your body actually needs the support. So because you're doing so much more than just coasting through life, you are actually working consciously at supporting your spiritual evolution. And when your nervous system and your body is shifting chemistry, because that's what happens. That's what actually happens when you change your awareness and the way you think, your body chemistry actually changes. So you actually need the support.
The other thing I would say is drop your coffee, drop your caffeine. Like drink like maybe 2 sips of coffee or a little bit of coffee, but don't drink coffee all throughout the day, or tea, any kind of caffeine all throughout the day, because it affects your neurological condition.
Yeah,
your vibrational energy is interfered with, right? So thank you. I did remember something that, and this is a tip I was going to give Nancy on Messenger. I'm just going to speak to everyone about it. When Travis said journal, right? What I was going to tell Nancy is I have put the transcripts of the conscious manifestation course on the Facebook page, right? They are uploaded as files. So what I would say is like take a transcript and start writing each and every word, like beautiful cursive, however beautiful writing. Take like a pencil, take a yellow notepad, cheap things. You don't have to spend too much money. 20-cent pencil or 25-cent pencil. How much do they cost in Canada, the yellow pencil? 20 cents, Kelly?
Pennies, yeah, depending on how big the box is. Like you can get like a box of 10 for like $2.99 or something.
Okay,
Where you shop.
perfect.
Like.
Thank you. So write each word slowly so that what Eckhart is saying on a video actually gets into your spirit. Because journaling or writing very slowly is so important. That's why he says, take your affirmation where he says, my life is filled with, what is he at? My life is filled with creativeness, achievements, and prosperity. I'm filled with power. To say it is one level of depth, but when you write it, it's like a totally different level of depth. That's why Byron Katie says every thought belongs on paper, because once you steadily write, you still your mind, right? When you still your mind, you raise your vibrational frequency, and that's all that is needed. Let's go to another question. I think John was saying something about, there were a couple of posts from John where he says, was put on medication. I thought, great, I feel better, but it came with a lot of side effects. But this year, my plan is to get rid of medication and deal with it naturally through the practice of power of now. So what do y'all think? And then another question that he put was, what do y'all think of antidepressants, right? Travis, you want to get started on how do you wean yourself out of antidepressants is, I think, the
Sure,
question.
sure.
Thank
Well,
you.
I think, yeah, I think that, you know, my acronym meds, I think that's kind of where it comes from, because it's, you know, we live in a culture today where there are so many you know, conditions and diagnoses and pharmaceutical options that are very readily and quickly dispensed, and I think there's only in the general medical community, oftentimes understanding as to human beings and who we are and what we need, only a couple of the dimensions of who we are and not the full spectrum of who we are. And so so I would really repeat excuse me, pardon me, one second, I have to cough here, hold on. Pardon me. So I think if somebody doesn't want to use pharmaceuticals, and I think that they're great to avoid unless you absolutely need them. And one way to discover if you do or don't need them is to do those things where you have a regular meditation practice in whatever form works for you. Do whatever you can to support healthy sleep and healthy sleep patterns. You know, whether that be, you know, dimming lights and screen time a couple hours before bed, getting to bed at a regular time, any of those kinds of things. You know, understanding what proper nutrition is and doing your best to meet that need as best you can, and then getting some physical movement, just to, you know, it's just, to me, it's just like my truck or something. Like if I just drive it around town, it's not as happy as if I take it out on the freeway sometimes and really open it up. The body's the same way. It needs that movement to function properly and free up those energies and get everything to be able to release and move on so the new can come in. So I think you know, in things like having community, sunlight, those things are great for depression. So sometimes we don't realize what our needs are. We don't want to make the effort to change our behavior patterns, and it just seems a little easier option to take a pill. And so a lot of us go for that because we don't want to do the work. We don't want to make it our responsibility and put ourselves in the driver's seat and realize our power and go, maybe I can turn this around. I can empower myself in this way. So I think, and I think that might be suggestive of moving beyond a limiting belief that I can't do it. This is a greater power than the power that I have, the power of this depression or mental emotional state or whatever the medication might be for. So getting back into a frame of consciousness where one can go, maybe I do have the power to do this. And so, just changing our mind frame and just meeting all of our basic needs and enjoying, I think so often unconsciously with our goals and efforts and dreams and aims, our life, our present moment can sometimes become a means to an end, where we feel as there's some moment that has yet to happen that is going to be somehow better than this moment that's happening right now. And we're perpetually in that state of consciousness. So to be able to catch ourselves, I do it with myself all the time. And I go, why do I feel crappy? And then I go, well, it's because I've made everything I'm doing into a means to an end. And now my life is all aimed at some idea of an imaginary future. I did that again, and then I just reset and recalibrate. So I guess I'm just kind of reiterating what I said in the previous question, but I really think that just those basic things, that's kind of why I thought it was a cute acronym, was because it was a way to, before you try any pharmaceuticals, make sure you're doing these. Make sure you're getting your meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. Then if that's not working, maybe now would be the time. But if you don't exhaust all of the things that are already readily at one's disposal before trying the medication, that sometimes can just be, you don't want to put in the work, because it is hard to change our habits. But if we do it, it reaches a tipping point where it becomes weirder to not do that new habit than to do it. And so it's a real by and by kind of thing, I think, and requires a lot of fortitude and perseverance and kind of a steady quality within us. So that's what I would have to offer to that, in hopes that it might have some positive effect. So
Thank you, Travis. And what I would say is, actually, since we don't know what stage of depression John is in, if it is clinical depression, then don't take yourself off your antidepressants. That would be dangerous to you. But what I would say is, to try and start weaning off, do the meds, do the meditation, the exercise, the diet, and
sleep. And
sleep.
Yeah, you don't need to stop doing the medication to do those things. So those things,
Okay.
I think, should be done regardless. And yes, that's a key point, because sometimes it is necessary to be on certain medications, and I wouldn't want to advise someone just cut it out if it is something that's really needed. So
Exactly. Thank you. Because I know one of my best friends, she is diabetic, and she did the ketogenic diet, but like she went a year, then lost the weight and everything, then started like reducing her pill. Like she would cut it into half and just take half a pill and then slowly decrease it, right? So there's a way that you wean yourself off the medication, but immediately you cannot. As far as diet is concerned, like we've already discussed, I would strongly recommend the book Cleanse to Heal, because he has a long list for depression. Depression is because of heavy metal toxins in the body, And generationally, maybe your great grandfather, or I mean, grandparents, like generationally, right? Grandfather, grandmother, maybe 200 years ago, we've been infected with aluminum, asbestos, and all that. And now pesticides and herbicides and whatever is in the air, the pollution, now all that has settled in. And that's why we have, so cleansing is necessary. So you can look up, it's a $20 book, $16 book, or $15 book, and it'll give you a path to, just like Kelly said earlier, right? There are supplements that you can supplement. So take your medication, do the meds that Travis is talking about as far as diet is concerned, change your diet. And the guidance for the diet is in that book, Cleanse to Heal, because there are supplements. The moment you start the green leafy vegetables, right, it will change. Your depression will lift a little bit. So a lot of it has to do with being in the past, right? Depression is mostly I'm dwelling in my past and I'm regurgitating the past. That's what Eckhart says. So thank you, Travis. April, did you want to talk about what else can be done about depression?
I agree with both of you, Travis's meds, and I work in this field. This is where I work for my regular job. This is one of the things that I do. And do I think if you become Buddha or Gandhi that you could eliminate depression? Sure. I believe that that is possible, that perhaps Buddha or Gandhi or Eckhart was depressed, right? And the more spiritual you become, then the possibility of you not being depressed is there. Do I think there's generational patterns? Yes. Do I think that there's heavy metals? Yes. What I find is that it is, if it is chronic depression, it is genetic. It is genetic. And again, can you become Buddha and be healed? That is possible, but it is a very touchy subject, because if it, you still have to realize that even if you're spiritual, like if you notice when Eckhart talks, he has a lot of phlegm. He has a lot of phlegm. He still has a human body. You still have a human body. So even though we're spiritual and we want to continue growing, and we want to continue to become Christ-like, and you still have a physical body that you're dealing with. Okay. That's part of being here on earth. You get a physical body. Do I agree that when you take a medication that, like Bruce Lipton says, and I teach people this when I talk about addiction, when you take something, a substance, you eat some grapes, it does not go into your blood system and say, hey, we're going to skip all the toes today. Not going to do the eyelashes. No. Every single, all 50 trillion cells in the body get hit. Yes, that is true. Are there side effects? Yes, that is true. So and then his other question is, are any of you on antidepressants? I had years where I was on antidepressants after my brother committed suicide, had tons of side effects. And I did get myself off of them. Depression does run in my family. Maybe we're all got heavy metals, perhaps. We have a bunch of Native Americans and Germans, so I don't.
Wow, what a combination.
My grandfather, actually, they came over on the boat from Germany. So perhaps, but my point is I want you to be super careful. And is it possible? Yes. There was a point where I was on them. They had horrible side effects. I was more tired than I was depressed with them. I chose to use and I'm not suggesting you do this by any means. I chose to use the amino acid route. I used amino acids, L-tyrosine, I'm not going to say which ones. I'm not a doctor. I did tons of research for months first, and amino acids make up the proteins in the body. changes the chemistry. I did my research. Okay. It worked for me. That does not mean it's going to work for everybody. But by all means, please stay on the meds for right now and figure out what is the best way for you. And hopefully you will become Gandhi and you will be free.
Thank you, April. I think that's why medical medium Anthony William wrote that book, Cleanse to Heal, because there's so much generational, like at the cellular level, each cell is remembering all the trauma that it has gone through because of what the human body generationally has been put through, right? Physical body. So
I think it says 7 generations, but I think perhaps it's more than that. It's 7, they say, right? But I think it's probably more that the cells
Right.
remember. Yeah.
the Industrial Revolution was great, but it also brought weaker bodies, physical bodies. We become weaker. So thank you. Kelly, you want to talk about the depression?
Yes, please. This is an excellent topic, and Travis, April, thank you both for your input. Completely agree with both of you. Put them as well. It's wonderful, John, that you are looking at reducing and eliminating pharmaceuticals from your system, as Punam has indicated, and something that I agree that the way to heal the body is through cleansing, is through natural diet. And years ago, I was a security guard and I got stuck on graveyard shift for a whole summer. Totally messed up my circadian rhythm, my sleep patterns, my mental space, and I got depressed as a result. This is when I was 19. And I took an antidepressant. And again, I had to convince my doctor that I wanted an antidepressant. He was not a pill pusher, which was, great, awesome. He believed in diet and exercise and sunshine and stuff like that. So that's been my point of reference for, general practitioners. However, I noticed that with the antidepressant, and it was called Paxil, and he gave me like the lowest dose possible, everything sort of became flat. I was like, okay, and everything was, fine, and I could get through life, and, things were good, but they're just good, and never went, anywhere else other than just good. And it was a weird, eerie sort of space. And, it was a very low dose, and I only took it for 6 months, and then I went back to my doctor, and I was like, okay, I think I'm good. I think I can, I don't want to take this anymore. And he's like, so what you do is you start splitting your dosage, and this is what he gave me as instructions. Again, I'm not a doctor, and, I would definitely, John, I would talk to your doctor about the progression of eliminating antidepressants from your system. And, oh yes, there's a book that, and again, I grew up with grandparents who had been going to medical school. So I grew up with their medical textbooks, and they're both, my great grandfather was a homeopath. So there's this tradition in my family of natural healing. And there's a book that I read called, I don't know if you guys can see that backwards. It's called Natural High.
Yes.
It's written by Hyla Cass, Hylacass, and Patrick Holford. It's, feel good all the time. It's about supplementing your diet with amino acids, with natural ingredients, finding them in nature, in food, and how to incorporate them to support your body in a natural detox and healing process. And I probably went through 2 of those copies, and just, the first one, I read it so much it fell apart. I've gone the amino acid route myself. I've, growing up with my grandparents who were training to be doctors, and my grandfather who had his dad being a homeopath and a chiropractor, and who believed in, you know, the homeopathic remedies and the herbal remedies, I did my research and researched and researched and researched and tried things out. And a personal point of reference was back in grade 11, grade 12, I developed a really, really severe candida growth. This is, you know, natural gut bacteria, yeast in the gut that we all naturally have. And I gave myself alcohol poisoning at a party. I was young, and, you know, I was young, not knowing what I was doing. And I drank so much one time that I put myself in toxic shock. And, you know, woke up with my grandparents, and that was an experience in and of itself. It's like, wait, how did I get here? So, and I spent the next few years detoxing my system, rehabilitating my gut, my stomach, my ability to process food, because the amount of alcohol had also like just caused the candida to just really overtake my system. And I had to learn how to listen to my body, how to listen to what I was eating, and how to understand what supplements were working for my body. And yeah, like I spent, like, ever since then, amino acids, April, absolutely. You know, they are the building blocks of everything that your system uses, everything that your body needs. You can find them in plants. You can find them in spirulina and chlorella. You can find condensed superfoods like moringa and mangosteen that are really, really good for helping the body detox. Again, do your research. Start with little itty bitty baby steps, depending, again, you know, personally, I feel there's nothing wrong with antidepressants, but I also understand that there are a lot of side effects to, you know, a lot of pharmaceuticals out there, and that people are more sensitive than others. I mean, I come from a family, my dad is like, he needs like a quarter itty bitty piece of Tylenol or Advil or whatever, and it's like he's taking 2 full strength ones. You know, that's how sensitive my family's system is. So I come by it honestly. You know, honestly, John, wanting a healthy body, wanting to develop a personal practice of awareness to support healing your body is great, because you need the mental space, you need the mental discipline to go alongside, you know, the meditation, the exercise, the diet, and everything else that you can do for yourself. So, awesome. Great that you want to do this for yourself. Again, talk to your doctor. I, again, personally do not believe there's anything wrong with antidepressants, because there are times when people need them. As I said, my own experience with Paxil back when I was 19, yeah, I needed it. My sleep schedule, my mental space was completely messed up from being on graveyard shifts as a security guard. And, you know, I was like 19. I had like, yeah, I had my Qigong, but it was just sort of like, it didn't seem to be catching up to the space that I was dealing with. So by having the extra support, brief as it was for 6 months, it helped me sort of tune into the space that my body was in. And yes, it helped get me out of that broken circadian rhythm. But it also taught me that I could go and find things in foods that would actually help, that were natural, because it got me curious about what I could do for myself other than just taking an antidepressant. Like, okay, if this works, this little bit of this works, then what else will work? So anyhow, my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Kelly. There's a quick question for you, Kelly, from Summer. What is your feeling about the anti-gravity upside down equipment? Do you believe that helps your energy? The anti-gravity upside down equipment?
Anti-gravity upside down equipment.
Your body is turned upside down, like your you're doing a headstand almost.
Like gravity boots or something like that, right? Short
Do you
answer.
think it helps your energy?
Yes. However, and the qualifier is that wearing gravity boots or hanging upside down will rebalance your blood flow and will stretch out your spine. And it'll naturally let gravity do that for you. My grandma and grandpa, again, my Mennonite grandparents that were the doctors to be, and then World War II broke out and my grandpa got sick and had one of those tables where you get on it and you could bend forward, where you could do like a pike, bring your head to your knees, or you could actually go invert and upside down. It was great fun as a kid, and I didn't realize what I was playing with, and until I got older and saw all the ads on TV. I'm going, hey, that's like what my grandma and grandpa have. Cool. No idea. Yes, because it helps stretch out the spine. And in Qigong, the spine is one of the main energy channels of the body. So anytime that you reduce the stress on the spine and help the body stretch out, and again, inversions, right? In yoga, in Qigong, we have them. Hanging upside down is actually really good for the body because it will help the body change the blood flow. It'll help get blood back into the head when we tend to get cut off or like tense from stress. So gravity boots, hanging upside down, it will definitely help your energy. Again, it's not quite the same thing as developing a practice like Qigong or meditation. It's sort of an external practice. And, there are lots of benefits, or lots of, pure physical benefits to having something so simple where you hang upside down for a couple minutes. And, a lot of people swear by that kind of experience because it reduces the stress on the spine and changes the blood flow into the brain, and it helps with hypertension and stuff like that.
Thank you, Kelly. So Eileen finally joined us. Welcome, Eileen, the incredible.
Hello.
Hello. For a few minutes. So Sandhya asks, if someone is unconscious around us and considering the same as unconscious, is it judging? April, you want to answer that question?
And considering the same as unconscious, what does that mean? And considering, what do they mean by that?
If you were to say somebody's acting unconscious and we are saying that person is unconscious, is that a judgment?
Sure. Could be construed as a judgment. I think that if you want to kind of break things down, and you could consider that a judgment. But I don't really, I'm not sure how to, I think it's a necessary judgment. I think that when you have yourself in that space, in that wholeness space and connected, and that is your frame, that's your base that you're working off of unconditional love and acceptance. When somebody else is unconscious per se, and that's how you don't get upset by it. So I guess it could be a judgment. I actually, there are some times now, because, and it's not to have ego, but there are some people that I will see their ego, their unconsciousness, and I almost kind of chuckle, right? So I guess maybe you could, sometimes I always wondered why Eckhart laughed, but sometimes I just kind of, sometimes it's kind of funny. And maybe that's a judgment. But I think it's coming from a different space than judgment. I think it's coming from a different platform than judgment. Not really criticizing them. I'm just aware of their level, right?
Thank you, April. Travis, did you want to talk about Sandhya's, what's the difference between being judgmental about when Eckhart says somebody's unconscious, it seems like non-polarized statement, right? When can we be non-polarized as opposed to judgmental about it? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's where when we run into trouble, I think might be when we equate the unconsciousness or the unconscious or the behavior that arises out of it, the unconscious behavior or action or words, with who that person is. It's when we make those synonymous. Think about it, if we can put ourselves in the shoes of the one being judged, right? And somebody is seeing my degree of consciousness and unconsciousness, and they make it personal, they equate that to who I am, and then now they're not judging the behavior or the subsequent state that arises out of who I am. It's a direct attack on me. and then there's a greater likelihood that I would feel offended, that I would put up my defenses, that I would create even further juxtaposition, and then nobody'd be having a good time. And then I could even possibly pull them into unconsciousness, and they could join me in my unconsciousness. And so, but if somebody either has the grace to let it be and not have to address it, or if they do, they can intentionally differentiate who I am, me, from the unconscious, whatever it is they're observing. And they go, endless respect to you and who you are. I'm seeing this thing over here happening right now. Not enjoying it, it seems kind of unconscious of this other stuff going on over here. Now they've reduced the possibility that I would become reactive, and put up defenses, maybe counterattack them, go, well, you're unconscious in this way. And so I think that's really what it is. It's when because who we are isn't that unconsciousness. That's just the space beyond where our dimmer switch has gotten turned up to. That's just that little bit of darkness that's outside of the reach of the degree of light that is shining through us. So it's not anyone's. It shouldn't be a judgment on who it is, because I think, and when we're able to offer real deep loving regard to one another, and differentiate and separate the who from the unconsciousness, it's amazing. People feel so respected in that, and it really helps bring the best out of people and helps enable more enriching interaction all around, I think. So
Thank you, Travis. So it's like, if your dimmer switch is turned on completely, that means high degree of presence power. There's not even a saying that this is unconscious. Right? Because
perhaps quite likely, yes, I would say. I want to be able to answer that question not through speculation, but for authority through direct firsthand experience. So I'll keep turning it up.
Thank you, Travis. It happens during group meditation as well. Like sometimes people are getting upset, right? And you just have to offer that spaciousness. You have to become like a vessel that just absorb, empty vessel that can just absorb. And that's why I keep telling everyone that because it's a group meditation, the energy field is already created. Eileen, Lakshmi, Gracie, they joined early. So there's some kind of like stillness already, right? So you enter when the spoken word comes through, then you can be the vessel. Like I can feel that the group can absorb whatever is being said, right? Whether it's like a disturbance, emotional, high, low, it can be absorbed. So thank you for that. Eileen, did you want to contribute anything about forgiveness? I thought about you when I started the topic, and I was like, the one day that I knew Eileen would have something to say is when Eileen disappears out of the panel. You want to say
Trust
something?
me, I'm disappearing for good reason. I do. I was listening to the live as I was working, and I was thinking about it because I know from personal experience that I experienced what April was talking about, how you can have this, it's almost like, trying to figure out how to explain it, assumption that you have forgiven something. It's like you can put the words to it. You can say, you know, oh, I'm over that. I've forgiven them. I'm okay with that. When in reality, you might have said it. You might have, you know, thought that thought, but my experience was with the whole idea of abandonment, and didn't even know that I was, you know, struggling with that at that point. But I had already a year prior forgiven my biological mother and went through that whole process. And then, you know, almost a year later, to realize that I might have attempted that, but true forgiveness was in my act of being grateful for her abandoning me, and what that has kind of led my life to be, and being grateful for the abandonment. And that just kind of dominoed into a whole snowball of things here in my household, and just healing that I didn't even know needed to be healed. And so I definitely have experience with that. And I think there's a difference between being able to say that you forgive, and getting to a point where there isn't a need for forgiving. Because when it's truly happened, like that healing has happened, it wouldn't even necessarily need to be like that act of forgiving. It's different. It's kind of hard to explain.
And the way you knew that you had not healed, that it was superficial, was there was a disturbance in the force, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a few months back, you explained it to us.
Yeah.
You were talking to Ryan, and everything
Yeah.
fell apart.
Well, it was actually like a couple of things, because that was actually being over a family member's suicide. The thing that happened with Ryan, but it was actually April in one of our live sessions brought up abandonment by her mother. And while she was talking about it, I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like I didn't even know.
But they
that
happened like this almost the
Yes.
same week or back-to-back week, right? Few days apart events.
Absolutely.
That's
But
the
yeah,
dislodging. That's the dislodging that Kelly and I were talking about. Once that emotional field dislodges, then other things start to resurface up.
mhm.
Like one layer dislodges and then another layer comes up. So to Nancy and Candy, that's what's happening with the anxiety is one layer dislodges, but we've had layers and layers and layers energetic patterns. So thank you, Eileen.
Absolutely.
Kelly,
Thank
did you want to talk about the unconscious labeling somebody is judgmental?
Sure. First of all, though, hi Eileen, good to see you. And second of all, Poonam, I wanted to thank you for your personal point of context that you shared with us earlier about forgiveness. Beautiful sharing. Thank you so much for that. It's wonderful to hear your process and your point of reference for that kind of space. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, there's a fine line. As April said, you know, I agree. It's like, yeah, sure, it can be a judgment. And Travis, you know, great explanation, great context for, you know, the different spaces of understanding that unconsciousness and how we can, you know, get hooked into it and then sort of like, you know, have that push and pull, that back and forth, that ego like attack and defense thing going on. And yeah, there's absolutely, you know, a fine line of discernment. Judgment is sort of like the ego thing to do of labeling or judging someone around us as unconscious. And my experience has shown that when we get to that space, and I'm just going to go full circle and bring it right back to the front here, because when we get to a space of forgiveness, where forgiveness and really what it boils down to is love and alignment with our heart and our loving kindness, forgiveness and discernment become as natural as breathing. And we can recognize other people's unconsciousness because we've seen it in ourselves. This is why we see it in other people, is because we have connected with that space and we're either aware of it, working on it, healing, or have healed a specific level or layer of it. You know, it's just like a layer cake where you cut it open and you got all these layers. So it's like, oh yeah, more yummy healing chocolatey goodness. You know, can I have some icing and some sprinkles with, you know, to like make it go down easier, please? Because you know, yeah, there are levels of understanding that go with recognizing someone being unconscious, and all of those come back to us. All of those come back to our own level of awareness, our own understanding of how unconscious we've been. You got the t-shirt, boxes of them in the closet, $8.99. Anyone wants some? It's a progression. Like all of this work, it's a progression. And it does become something that is as natural as breathing, as recognizing the space that another person is in. Because when you spend enough time with ourselves and our own patterns and our own healing and going inside, we recognize ourselves in other people. This is what Eckhart Tolle talks about. When we realize that we are one, that we're all subject to this illusion, that we're all subject to the same evolution. We have the same choices to make. So of course we're going to recognize someone else being unconscious when we recognize it in ourselves. And sometimes we'll get angry about it because we haven't healed it in ourselves, because we want to judge the other person, because we want to not look at ourselves. So we get invested in judging people outside of ourselves. Been there. Again, got boxes of t-shirts, $8.99, you know, just saying. But in all seriousness and play, recognizing that people are unconscious and that is the space that most people operate from until they begin to understand that there is the possibility of a different space, that love is actually more natural to us than the fear and the separation and the anxiety. And oftentimes it's a very huge leap of faith that something different is possible. And we don't want to go there because, you know, it's like we resist because like it makes us super uncomfortable, and then we got to like look at our stuff, and we're gonna have to print all those t-shirts and like figure out what to do with them. And you know, it's par for the course. It's part of the progression. We become aware of our own unconsciousness, and as we work on it, and because we are looking at our own unconsciousness, we see it in other people. It's a natural evolution of your awareness to become aware of other people's levels of unconsciousness. And this, I feel, for me has been, I'm gonna get all choked up here. It has been one of the deepest aspects of my personal education on my path. Is the more I do my work, the more I see, the more I understand how much harm I've done to myself by holding on to old spaces, the more love and compassion and loving kindness I have for other people around me. And the more that space of forgiveness is deeper and deeper naturally, where it's not even a thought process, it's an understanding and it's a knowing. And that's been my experience.
Thank you, Kelly. I think the way Eckhart would say that it is judgmental would be if we were in the statement of saying, maybe we are explaining something and we're saying, like Eckhart always talks about unconscious person, right? But when he's explaining, he's doing it in very non-polarized ways. He is not, so what, if anybody were to know of Eckhart's teachings, the greatest pointer that Eckhart talks about is how the ego loves to feel superior, right? It is constantly using strategies. And he talks about how it comes in through the back door, right? Now I'm spiritual and somebody behaved a certain way, and I'm going to call it unconscious in that instance. So Sandhya, it's up to you. Are you doing it in a non-polarized way, or is it that you're feeling superior? The moment you feel superior, that's judgmental, right? The difference between the two would be if I'm not feeling superior, like Eckhart has to talk about his dad, his mom, all their unconsciousness, right? Their egoic, and he never says that was my dad. Now look at how beautiful that is. He says the egoic patterns in my dad were such that he was angry, he had explosive anger, or the egoic patterns of my mom was that she had incessant talking, right? She talked incessantly. So since it's been pretty late, it's the end of the new year starting, right? So New Year wishes. Kelly, you want to start? And we'll go around in circle.
So thank you, Poonam. Very nicely wrapped up. I just want to say, you know, I'm wishing everyone lots of love and lots of self-compassion and self-love at the end of this amazingly educational year. And I concur and totally agree with Poonam about wishing love and forgiveness for everyone and success in the coming year.
Thank you. Beautiful. Eileen, New Year wishes?
I just hope that I know that I am grateful for all that is. So I'm just hoping that more of the collective can get to a place where they're grateful for all,
Embrace gratitude. Thank you.
being accepting and grateful for everything.
Thank you, Eileen. You had to slip in the G word, huh? Always.
Absolutely.
Travis, New Year wishes?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm always just so grateful to be a part of all of this, and I just, may we all move into a space where we can see that truth, that none is superior to another, and live from that space, and live in that way, and offer one another that grace. That's my wish.
Thank you.
Mhm.
April, New Year wishes?
I have the same wish. I have the same desire as everybody, and as you, Poonam, that if I can just teach one person in the world, really, it's not one person. I want to teach 1 million people to love yourself. Just love yourself, that you have worth, that you have purpose, that it is so much better when you can get to that base. Life is so much better. It's so much prettier. It's so much more worth it if you can just work from that base of we are all one, we're all worthy, and we can all be healed. We can absolutely be healed. And when you find the key, like Eileen said, the key is when you find the grace in your experiences. When you find those blessings, that is how you turn it around. So I wish everybody a happy new year. Thank you for allowing me to be on this panel. And I am excited to watch all of us grow in the next year.
Thank you, April, for that intention. Beautiful intention. I would reiterate what everyone has said. It has been an honor, an absolute humbling experience, an honor and a privilege to have all of you here, all of you out there, joining us week after week. I know Mike, Gracie, Lakshmi, Summer, constant, relentless support, right? Just like the panel has selflessly given. So, it took, if people realize Eckhart had his awakening at 28, and it was not until he was in his late 40s, so 47, 48, that he achieved his fame and fortune, right? What I would wish that everyone realized that it does not take 20 years. There's help available. There's help from Kelly available. There's help from April available. There's help from Travis available. Travis holds a meditation, right? Accelerate your, and that is what my last week's message was, accelerate your growth in your spiritual power, because you have the power. It's within you, just like Wizard of Oz, right? Dorothy, the power is within you, right? So the power is within you. You just have to unleash it, like know how to discover what is that power within you and unleash it. And there are so many people on the group meditation, like Marla started cracking her ego and like really making, okay, somebody from the outside is tapping, right? But you also be the beak of the little bird that goes and taps on the egg to break that ego shell, and be very diligent about it, tap on it, right? And peace, harmony, and abundance to all. We are here to help all of you grow. And that is what the foundation of this group was and is and will continue to be. And looking forward to like doing amazing things next year in 2021. Happy New Year, everyone, infinite blessings and eternal gratitude. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.